It goes without saying that winning lane is oftentimes the best strategy for winning the entire game. You get an early lead, you translate that into some objectives, you push your opponent's base, and you win the game. Being in control of the map from the get-go is obviously nice, especially if you're good at translating early advantages into long-term ones. However, we're all aware that ADC has significantly less agency than their support when it comes to winning the early lane phase. That's why the role is so frustrating to play, because it's so inconsistent to get those early advantages we just mentioned. That being said, our goal is to get you to realize that there's always something you can do to give yourself a higher chance at winning lane on your own. In this guide, we'll cover 5 tips that aren't discussed all that much that can significantly increase your chances of winning the lane phase. Let's get into it. One of the simplest but most important things to keep in mind when playing in low elo games is just to accept that not a single player you're up against will ever legitimately mind game you. To put it bluntly, none of your opponents have any clue about what they're doing. So how in the world are they going to randomly adapt and change their entire playstyle in order to trick you? Yeah, that's not happening. The reason we're covering this is because that just means that it's incredibly easy to read your opponent's intentions in low elo if you're paying attention. For example, during this game, Ashe and Seraphine have slowly but surely whittled down the enemy Draven's health bar with their range advantage. Take a look at how Draven and Leona are playing right now as a result. They're super far back, and Leona isn't even moving up to proc her relic shield in fear of taking too much poke damage. We're not criticizing them, this is exactly how they should be playing after taking this much poke. Unfortunately for Ashe though, she isn't able to pressure too much at the moment. As you can probably tell, she's very concerned as to where the enemy jungler is on the map. When she's finally beginning to crash the wave, just take a look at Leona's positioning. She's posturing aggressively in the brush and is even unafraid to walk up to last hit a minion, despite Seraphine being in a prime position to punish her for it. Ashe is having absolutely none of it. Even before Leona shot out her E and Lilia showed up, she was clearly playing extremely safe. Due to sniffing out the gank, Ashe was far enough away that she could DPS freely, as the enemy team chased down Seraphine. Thanks to her prime positioning in this fight, she actually turns the play around and manages to turn this desperate gank into a triple kill for herself instead. The main point we want to reiterate is that movement like this could be a feign in higher elos. With so much health left, Leona could technically just be pretending to set up a gank so that Draven can farm a bit more despite being on such low health. But plays like that will literally never happen in lower elos. This means that every single time your opponent randomly changes their playstyle for no apparent reason, that you are most definitely being ganked or something. And that's why Ashe was able to read this play so easily. Now, although you don't have to worry about mind games from your opponents, that doesn't mean you shouldn't utilize them to your own advantage. Again, since lower elo players don't actually know how to properly mind game, they'll never be able to expect when you're doing so yourself. Take a look at the lane state right now. Kog'Maw is crashing a massive wave into his opponent's tower. As he does, Rengar steps into a ward in the tri-brush. Notice how Kog'Maw begins acting. He's playing safe, making sure he doesn't get engaged on, but he's not backing off or doing anything. He's effectively acting as if he doesn't even know Rengar is there. This likely makes Rengar believe that he's unspotted. In his mind, as Senna disappears from the lane, she's going to go ward, and he's ready to catch her off guard as she does. The point of Kog'Maw's bait was to buy time for his Wukong, who is reacting on the minimap. If he comes and a 3v3 fight breaks out, Kog'Maw's team should come out ahead thanks to the health advantage he's already secured. Once Wukong is here, Senna engages the fight. Although it's not Rengar that ends up dying, the fight did end up baiting Varus into an unfortunate death, costing him a huge chunk of farm, sealing his fate in this game. Now, although the result was good, it definitely wasn't nearly as good as it could have been. The Senna actually made a critical mistake in the play that Kog'Maw set up by pretending to not see Rengar. Can you tell what that mistake is here? Auto-attacking Rengar was definitely a mistake and a missed opportunity for more kills. The whole point of mind games is to put yourself in your opponent's shoes for a moment. By auto-attacking from this angle, Senna is effectively hitting Rengar from outside his field of vision. This will send anyone into an immediate panic, which is exactly what happened. Rengar was on full retreat mode the second that happened. Here's how to properly play the situation if you were in Senna's shoes. 1. If Wukong isn't here yet, you walk slightly outside of Rengar's engage range and pretend to go ward the river. This would seem very normal to Rengar, so he'd probably keep waiting for a play. Once Wukong was here, Senna should approach from this angle and pretend to ward the brush rather than auto-attack Rengar. This will make him continue to think he has the upper hand and he's likely to pounce. That would put him completely out of position, enabling a free kill. Again, auto-attacking here is pointless. You want Rengar to overcommit, not scare him into running away. Mind games are all about putting yourself in your opponent's shoes and making them believe that they're the ones in control. Before we jump into our next tip, you should know that at SkillCap we offer skill insurance, a guarantee you'll climb when actively using our service or your money back. We do this because we have the best guides on the internet, which are designed specifically for silver, gold, and platinum, so you can start climbing stupidly fast with the best strategies for carrying bad teammates. Check us out after this, but for now, let's move on to tip number 3. There's a lot of randomness that can occur every game in solo queue, and one of the most annoying ones to deal with can come in the form of roaming. It's quite annoying whenever your lane opponents randomly get to roam to a river fight or towards mid, score free kills, and then come back to beat you in bottom with their gold advantage. As annoying as that can be, you might not be punishing your opponent's roams nearly as hard as you potentially could be. Let's take a look at a very important concept in regards to punishing your opponents for leaving lane. As many of you have probably experienced, while Sivir is walking back to lane, her Lulu decides it's time to walk up with half health towards the enemy Renata. Sadly, this results in her death, causing Sivir to lose a ton of lane pressure since she's now forced to 1v2 for a bit. Kai'Sa and Renata use this opportunity to push the wave and look to roam towards the mid lane fight that seems to be occurring right now. The first thing to keep in mind about responding to a roam is simple. You can either follow or you can't. In this case, Sivir can't chase two people while she's not synced up with Lulu. Situations like these can often cause players to do the classic should I not follow and waste so much of their time. Sivir recognizes immediately that she can't pursue them and instead pushes the wave as a response. Many of you probably already know to do this, but the actual punish you need to do versus roams is what comes next. Sivir vigilantly watches the fight to see what cooldowns her opponents are using and how much damage they may potentially be taking. Yes, sometimes your opponents will roam and get kills completely for free, but oftentimes they do have to commit resources into getting kills on your teammates. After they score their kills, your opponents now have two choices. They either base, conceding even more waves and giving you extra turret plates, or they try to walk back to lane after the roam. If they choose to walk back, this is how you need to actually punish them. If you paid attention, you saw your opponents committing a lot of resources. Then you need to cut them off before they get back to lane. You should technically be stronger than them because they haven't even spent the gold that they've earned yet. Generally, it's good enough to just cut them off. They're likely missing waves at their tower, which is already a big enough win on its own. However, every game is different. Sivir felt confident she could chase here and went for a bit of a spicy play. Although that was close, she does come out ahead with a nice snipe towards the end of the fight. Like we said, there's nothing you can do about the randomness of solo queue. Roams will happen and your opponents will get free kills, but punishing them properly should let you either come out even or ahead in a lot of cases, in spite of the free kills they may have gotten. Moving on, by now it's no secret that you should be playing around level ups during lane. There's a reason that Lucian's infamous level 2 power spike to this day remains the strongest timing window in the game. Both sides of the lane generally know this, which means that players will often fight each other to get wave control during those timings. That very process occurs during this game. Kog'Maw and Rell begin brawling with Kai'Sa and Braum during the second wave. Both sides want to push each other off first so that they can get the level 2 lead. We've actually chosen a challenger replay for this example. Both Kog'Maw and Rell are challenger players, while their opponents are a little less skilled. This is just to highlight how tiny skill differences can have such a big impact on the outcome of a lane. It is completely okay to stop hitting your opponents in the middle of a trade if it means that you will get a level up off of it. Both Kog'Maw and Rell with a bit more experience in their hands immediately realize this. Kai'Sa and Braum continue trying to fight, whereas Kog and Rell immediately start hitting the wave even though they're taking free damage. Being on the same page, they hit level 2 way before Kai'Sa and Braum and manage to chase them down for an easy first blood. Obviously, your support is unlikely to play this well, but you can do this on your own in a lot of cases. The concept of letting your opponent freely hit you in order to level up is mostly relevant during levels 2, 3, and 6. Taking free damage to hit these spikes is actually meaningful because these levels can drastically affect your champion's power. We wouldn't recommend doing something similar for other level ups. And our final underrated tip to stomp the laning phase revolves around rushing tier 2 boots versus lane opponents that both get countered by either the magic resist or armor provided by merc treads or plated steel caps. For example, in this game, Samira is against both Draven and Pyke. Both of them are heavy attack damage champions. Therefore, instead of selling her refillable potion to buy Noon Quiver, she instead opts into rushing steel caps instead. Look how much value the boots give her immediately in the next fight she gets into. She's able to kite them out thanks to the added movement speed. Then, once she finally commits to the fight, Samira takes significantly less damage from both of them thanks to the armor countering both of their champions. Eventually, this leads to a simple double kill, which snowballs are even further out of control. This strategy is especially brutal versus mage bot laners, since merc treads have insane value versus them in general. During this game, Jhin rushes Mercs versus a Karthus and Nautilus lane. Immediately, you can tell just how much more aggressively he can position in the lane thanks to the boots. In spite of having a worthless early game Sona, Jhin has an insane amount of pressure in the lane because his opponents are losing so much damage versus him due to being double countered by the boots. The next time they fight, take a look at how much value they have in this all-in. The Mercs make it significantly harder for Nautilus and Karthus to string damage together onto Jhin, so they have to desperately change targets onto Sona. As a result, Jhin fires away with complete freedom and manages to score an easy double kill, in spite of his support being significantly less useful than an early game Nautilus. Sadly, the only ADCs that rush either Steel Caps or Merc Treads tend to be Jhin, Kog'Maw, Samira, Senna, and attack speed Varus or Misfortune. This leaves a lot of ADCs where this tactic isn't that relevant. However, on all the ADCs that heavily rely on CDR or attack speed boots, they can rush either of those when they're versus a double skill shot lane, such as Ezreal Lux. Having added movement speed is a great way to get an edge in trades and all-ins by dodging all their spells and outvaluing them that way. Anyway guys, we've hoped you learned something new in this guide. Apply some of these tips to your laning arsenal and you'll be winning more lanes in no time. Thanks for watching and catch you next time.